Good morning, Patrick.
Morning, John.
How are you doing on this fine day?
It's a great day, getting ready for Christmas. Merry Christmas to everyone, and I hope everybody has a great time this year. We've had a good year. Looking forward to next year.
So I heard you made a new friend.
Lots of new friends.
Lots of new friends. Well, I heard you made a special new friend this week, and you have a special present, or you had a special Christmas present for someone.
Yeah, so our Shasta County District Attorney, Stephanie Bridgett. Stephanie, if you're listening, I'm coming for you. It's high time that we hold her accountable for the fraud and the theft of funds that she took from Shasta County taxpayers. And so while the county didn't act, I am. But let's go back a little ways so we can paint this story, so we can give the listeners a little bit more insight as to what happened. So you go back to the 2022 primary cycle. So let's start with, say, January, February of 2022. And if you remember back in that year, we had a slate of 6 established candidates and six non-established candidates. And the 6 non-established candidates were people like Eric Jensen, John Green, Bob Holsinger, Chris Kellstrom, and Kevin Cry. And they were well-funded. They were smart individuals. They had good campaigns. They all had good campaign managers, and they hit the ground running hard. And they started doing really well. And in fact, they started in almost every case, started to overtake the established candidates because they were well prepared and moving forward. And that cycle, then what ended up happening was Stephanie Bridgett, our DA, around March, it looks like, started to campaign out of the office, and that's fraud. You can't do that. And her staff started to campaign. And we started seeing her staff members at all the events, in the boardroom, different events, campaigning on her time. Take a look at the Facebook posts. You see Facebook post after Facebook post during daytime hours. And in fact, I saw it myself because I was very involved in a lot of those campaigns at that time. And so we saw all this activity. And so the election took place. All 6 of the established candidates won. In the case of the 2 supervisor districts, no one got 50%, so that group went on to the fall. But 4 positions were won outright, with the DA, the sheriff, the superintendent of schools, and the ROV. Now let's fast forward a little bit till 2023. I'm chair of the board, chairman of the Shasta County Board of Supervisors, and we finally got a new CEO. Matt Pontus resigned after it was known that he was a convicted felon. We did some recruitment, which took 8, 9, 10 months or so to recruit. And we found a very good candidate in Dave Rickard. Dave come on and started working. Within about 2 weeks, I crossed paths with him in the hallway, and he said, hey, Monica Fugit over at Support Services says that investigation on the DA is wrapping up. And I said, I don't know about that. And he's going, well, go talk to Monica. So I did, and she said, yeah, we're wrapping it up. And I said, well, how come I don't know about this investigation? And she goes, because we don't tell you about them. And I said, excuse me? And she goes, well, we just don't tell the board. So I said, you're telling me that all the internal investigations that occur around here, you do not tell the board members as to what's happening, the decision makers, the elected officials? She said, yes. And I said, well, that policy is going to change. And I said, I guess I better look at this DA investigation to see what it is. And so a whistleblower, someone that worked within the DA's office, came forward. The county hired an investigator, John Beers, to do an investigation. And she said that 80 to 90% of her time was spent campaigning, which is exactly what we were seeing out in the public. And very interesting on that report, even though it was a super shallow report, unfortunately the county hires these investigators to minimize liability for the county. So they do a quick sham of an investigation. But even in this investigation, they couldn't deny sustained allegations that there was campaigning going on in the office, that the whistleblower was credible. And when they interviewed Stephanie Bridgett, she admitted to campaigning on county time. She admitted to the fraud, and those allegations were sustained. So today you'll hear Stephanie Bridgett on the radio saying, there was an investigation and I was cleared of all wrongdoing. Not at all. That nothing could be further from the truth. That investigation found sustained allegations, and she admitted to the fraud. So at that time, I became whistleblower number 2. and I shouldn't have been, my name shouldn't have been revealed, but unfortunately, due to the events that occurred over the next year and a half, my name had to come out. And so we were to do a new investigation, much more thorough. Hundreds, if not thousands, of emails were never looked at. They only interviewed 5 people out of an office of over 70. So they did a very shallow job because they didn't want to get to the truth. They knew what they did. Now,
who was in charge of the investigation?
so at that time, you had people like our county council was overseeing things. So you had Ruben Cruz, Jim Ross, Matt McCumber were all working on these things. They all resigned, every one of them, and then some. And over that and other things that they had done, they all resigned. And then we get Joe Larmer, which I was really hoping for better performance with Joe. And so as I approached Joe and said, we need to get this investigation going, that I'm a whistleblower under the California Whistleblower Protection Act, we have to do the county must perform an investigation. It must be thorough and impartial and timely. And so I asked, and he stalled. Once Joe Larmer, which is our current county counsel, once he understood the depth of the liability to the county and the cost that it hurt our taxpayers substantially, he started to stall. He didn't want to do a full and thorough investigation, and he didn't. I asked again and again and again, all through 2023, all through 2024, and even when I was out of office into 2025, I kept trying to get an investigation to occur, and they wouldn't do it. Now, why wouldn't they do it? Because obviously potential liability, and they were trying to stretch it out to get beyond the statute of limitations so this thing would go away. Well, this thing isn't going to go away, so I had to file a complaint against the county for not investigating. I was a whistleblower, and it has to be investigated. And then this week, we filed in Shasta County Superior Court charges against Shasta County District Attorney Stephanie Bridgett and the County of Shasta. And so that's kind of how we got here. Now, in this investigation, as it was moving forward, we also learned something very substantial from the Shasta County Superior Court themselves, and that during that year of 2022, when she was campaigning on county time and committing the fraud, that 800 cases were dismissed, roughly half of her workload. That's the damage to the county. That's what she did. That's what the money she stole from the taxpayers, substantial. And everybody in the legal community knew about it, but nobody wanted to take the DA on because of retaliation. She has a history of that. I've seen it personally with the recall of Leonard Modi, what she attempted to do to push the proponents of the recall away. And so this is the cycle that we live in. This is the world that we live in. I just simply was not going to stand alongside and not do anything. I've been consulting with many attorneys, and as we move forward, I'm sure the county, will begin to defend Stephanie Bridgett. And that becomes another point of disagreement in that she has already admitted to the fraud. She's admitted to that. She's downplayed the amount of fraud, but she's admitted to it. And when you're campaigning on county time, that is not within the scope of your employment. So therefore, that is a conflict of interest, and the county cannot defend her and indemnify her because she is not doing things in the scope of her work. And she has unlimited immunity with regards to prosecutorial functions. That's well known. But clearly when you're doing something illegal, which this campaigning on county time is fraud and illegal, the county should step away. Right now, with the direction from Joe Larmer, he has explained to the board, he's probably used a particular court case saying that based off of this court case, we must defend her. He's wrong. It's not within the scope of her work. You do not defend her. So right now, the taxpayers of Shasta County may have to pay for her defense for stealing from the taxpayers of Shasta County. That's the craziness. And I'm hoping that the board sees that, gets a second opinion, and steps away from this. Now, we're going to ask the court just for that. We're going to ask, as we move forward, that the county has a conflict and they cannot defend her. Now, this just happened in our neighboring county, in Tehama County, where a supervisor was accused of wrongdoing, and the county took that as a credible threat, a credible allegation, and did not defend that supervisor because it wasn't within the scope of her work. This is the same thing. It's very clear that they shouldn't be doing this. So I'm disappointed with the board. and I went before the board and asked them not to do this. They went into closed session. They came back out, and Supervisor Cry, I believe, Chair Cry at the time, I think somewhat agreed with me, but ultimately the majority of the board said our hands are tied and that we must go down this direction. And again, I believe that is incorrect. Now, I know they're getting direction from Joe Larmer, but Joe is making a mistake. Now, he's an attorney, and they make mistakes. And so I'm calling.
We're all human.
And, so it's okay to take information from your staff, but it's not always correct. And part of the problem here, and I have sympathy for the board members because a lot of them are new. They don't have the history. They don't understand that attorneys do make mistakes, and they cite wrong court cases, and they have their opinions, not necessarily based on the law. And so if that's all the information that you're getting, you're going to tend to go with that, and you're going to tend to go with staff time and time again. My experience over at least a dozen years as an elected official has shown that you really question your staff, and some more than others, and make sure that you get the right decision for the public. And we each, in the county, each supervisor represents, many people within their district, and they want to do it right. This time they're doing it wrong. But we're going to ask the court to square that away, and hopefully the taxpayers are not on the hook on that. And
so if you're like campaigning is a personal thing, right? I mean, if you're in office, and you're going to campaign to get reelected, I mean, that has nothing to, that's like personal stuff.
Right, and there's times, obviously, whether you're the sheriff or you're the DA or a supervisor, you're going to be campaigning. It's campaign time, and you're going to be campaigning. But you don't do it out of the office, and you don't use your staff, and you don't dismiss half of your workload. That's what Shasta County District Attorney Stephanie Bridgett did. Now, later in January, I'm going to be bringing forward an election issue, and it's going to be a bombshell about the 2022 primary. That's for a different time. Right now, we're going to focus on the fraud that the district attorney took. She got behind. She knew she got behind, and so she was desperate. And you could see that. And if you read that whistleblower number 1 report, because there was no number 2 report, you'll see that they were desperate. They got behind. She didn't have a campaign manager. She didn't have an account. She was ill-prepared. She thought she was going to run unopposed. And here comes a young, strapping guy, Eric Jensen, well-spoken, well-financed, and he's beating her, and he's going to win. And so they went to extreme measures and defrauded the taxpayers, I believe, out of millions of dollars for not getting their caseloads done. And it's caused a lot of harm in the community. And when you really get down to it, the Shasta County Sheriff's Department knows about it. Reading Police Department knows about it. Anderson Police Department knows about it. And the Shasta County Superior Courts know about it. Stephanie started complaining that there's not enough courtrooms, there's not enough judges. She started complaining about everybody else, but she wouldn't look at herself. And all those problems were related to what she didn't do and doing her job during that cycle. She was more concerned about getting reelected than doing her job. And I'm going to hold her accountable.
So was it 2020? Somebody told me there was a rumor going around that there was 2 separate ballots, and I don't know if that was in 2022, and I don't know if that's something that you have any knowledge on or want to touch on.
And I have those ballots. And so while Joanna Franciscott destroyed the ballots of 2022 in that primary, she didn't get them all. And I'll be talking about that in January.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because
that's a separate issue, but it is related to this same primary race, but it is a separate issue that we're going to be talking about what happened on Market Street, specifically out of the elections office with Joanna Franciscott and Kathy Allen at that time. This lawsuit has nothing to do with that per se. This has to do with Stephanie Bridgett campaigning on county time, using her employees to do it. And we're going to do a thorough investigation as this goes forward. So just to put everybody on notice in that office, if you ever worked in that office, whether you've moved over to the city of Reading or moved over to probation or moved over to anywhere else, we're going to be subpoenaing you and every record that we can get our hands on. And there's so much information out there. There'll be thousands of correspondence during business hours, and we can confirm that. We know that, and a thorough investigation would prove that. The county got just simply scared because of the liability, but you don't cover up corruption. No matter who you are, when you see corruption, and yes, it may cost the county money, and that's unfortunate because I don't like having the taxpayers foot the bill. But in this case, the damage is already done. She already did the damage. She already committed the fraud. Now we have to hold her accountable. And the board should not try to cover this up, because I do believe county council is attempting to do that. And so I'm disappointed with anybody that does not want to get to the truth, because that's what's important here, is getting to the truth. And we know what the truth is. And over time, and as we go through this court case, it's not going to be quick. You know, I wish we could get this done in 6 months. I suspect it'll go on for a couple years, but in the end, we're going to hold her accountable.
So if a bunch of whistleblowers come forward, maybe we could speed this thing up and not drag it out as long?
Well, we already had one, and then two. There'll be more. More people will come forward, and then when you're being interviewed under oath, we're going to see much more stuff, and then we're going to back that up with the emails, the thousands of emails, and the Facebook posts, and all those things that we have access to. And so a thorough investigation will happen, and people, they'll need to be honest, otherwise, they'll be dealing with that, and then the truth will come out. And I didn't really want to take this on. This was one of the things I signed up for.
Yeah.
But the county should have pursued legal actions against Stephanie Bridgett. They should have done that. But in their minds, that is potential massive liability for what she did. They would rather it go away and cover it up, and that's wrong. We've uncovered a lot of corruption within the county, and I give credit to this current board for helping doing that in 2023 and 2024, getting rid of some bad apples. We've had lots of department heads resign because they would have been fired otherwise. But this is one where you got to take it on, and it's our top law enforcement officer in the county, and I know that's somewhat scary to some folks. But if you don't take on corruption, even at this highest level and this fraud, it'll continue. They'll do it again, and everybody else knows, well, if she can do this, then I can campaign on county time too. There's no penalty. And so, again, I didn't want to take this on. The county should have taken this on and cleared up this corruption. But in the words of one supervisor, he said, well, that ain't going to happen. So I will make it happen. We will go through the courts, and we will have a jury trial, and 12 people will see what I have seen, and then they will make a decision.
Well, if people don't get held accountable, then nothing changes and corruption just continues. And, as you were explaining how you didn't really want to step up and do this, I think that we all kind of wish someone else was doing it. But when good men do nothing is when a lot of bad things continue to happen.
Yeah. And I have other things that I'm doing. I've got other projects and other things, and so this wasn't like something I really wanted to do. But I had asked. I mean, it's not like I asked once to have this investigation done. Twice. I must have asked over a dozen times with multiple county councils, and their failure to do the second thorough whistleblower report clearly shows they didn't want to have this information out there. They didn't want to get to the truth. They knew the truth. They knew what was occurring. You read that first whistleblower report, that person that came forward put a lot on the line and expected something to get done about it, and nothing did get done about it. And that person was credible, and that person was in the office, we saw the same things. We saw what they were doing, and now we're going to see if we can get justice in a court system. Now, we've put a big money amount out there, 50-something plus $1 million, and the damage that was done probably equals that amount. And as we prevail in this case, as I think we will, then a settlement will occur. And my main goal here is to have her removed from office. That's the main goal. And yes, there is some monetary damage, and she's done a lot of fraud, but the goal is to get her out of this county and get a real district attorney that does the work. And we're not even going to get into all her Brady violations and all the other things that she's done.
Yeah.
There's a bunch. That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
This is about the fraud that she committed in 2022 and dismissing a huge amount of cases, and everybody knows it. And when we're done explaining this to the jurors and they see it, we will prevail.
Yeah, I mean, I can never forget about Water Splashgate, with Carlos. And,
Right.
Jeremy went to work one day, Jeremy Edwardson, to Soundhouse to go do some music recording. That's what he does. And there was two DAs waiting out there, assistant DAs, I guess you call them. And they're waiting in front of his business and he's going to work and he goes, "Hey, what's up, guys?" And they go, "Oh, we're from the DA's office." And they go, we were sent here to tell you that you're not allowed to go to the court cases. And the court cases involved with Carlos Zapata because you're an accomplice. So because he talked to him that night on the phone, they said you're an accomplice and you're not allowed to go. Now, maybe because he was involved with Red, White, and Blueprint and they didn't want him documenting or witnessing any of that stuff to get it out there. I'm not quite sure, but I think that's something you could have, I mean, whether it was right or wrong, do you really need to send two people that could be doing all kinds of other stuff all over water that got splashed?
Right.
And then, I mean, it's just, it's
it shows
insane.
you what kind of her office she has. And we saw it with the Modi recall. We had two proponents where they sent deputy DAs to those people's homes, threatened them, saying if these signatures aren't valid, that we could send you to prison and Child Protective Services could take your children. That's the type of office that this is. Now, that's illegal. They're trying to intimidate those women, and they did. And it's illegal activity, but it shows you what kind of department that we have there. It's wrong. And then she didn't mind stealing a ton of money. We give her about a $12 million budget. And when you dismiss half of your cases, there's substantial fraud involved in that. And she got away with it. And she's been on countless radio shows since then saying how hard they work. Well, they might work hard campaigning, but they sure as heck didn't work hard on getting those cases completed. Making excuses, trying to paint a picture to the public of something different than what's happening. And, at least on this particular case, we now have filed in Shasta County Superior Court. They most likely, the county and the DA will be served today, those documents, and then we'll move forward and see where we go. I'm sure the county will try to get the case dismissed on whatever technicality that they can. Hopefully we can get past that and proceed forward. I'd really like to get to the merits of this case and get down to the details and show the public exactly what she did and what the office staff did. And this is going to affect a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people were campaigning in that office, and they're spread out all over now. Some of them are over at the city of Reading. Some of them are at Shasta County Superior Court. And we're gonna get to all that detail. So I look forward to that. We're not going to back down. We got a whole slew of attorneys that are working on this, because they're all wanting the same thing. They want justice, and they want to hold her accountable for the fraud that she committed.
Well, how many people didn't get justice when there's all these cases that should move forward for people that did bad things?
Yeah,
that got swept under the rug or pushed off to the side. I would be pretty mad because I know, I've looked at bringing some cases forward, and I've had friends who are attorneys. They go, look, there's 2,000 backlog civil suits, and this is going to be 2.5 years before it even sees the light of day. And basically I'm like, so basically you're telling me don't.
Well, that very thing is partly compounded by what she did in 2022.
Yeah.
By not getting those cases done. Now that's starting to compound and starts to, because we have a brand new courthouse, as everybody knows, $180 million courthouse. We have more judges than we've ever had. We have more courtrooms than we've had, but yet there was a backlog. Amazing. Did we just have a whole bunch more crime? No, it started right then in 2022 by not doing your work on compounding it and then complaining at everybody else. And they'll be coming forward and explaining exactly why that occurred. And it's because of what she didn't do. She was more worried about keeping her job than doing the job. And that's not right, and we're going to hold her accountable. And if there's any justice in Shasta County Superior Court, and I'm hoping there is, we're going to prevail. But it'll be a jury trial, and I look forward to that. And again, it's not going to be quick. This is a complex case. There's going to be lots of investigation, thousands of emails showing different people campaigning on county time. It'll take some time, but we'll get to the end. And, so now that we've begun, I encourage the public to stay close to this, learn the facts and the details. Don't listen to the Record Searchlight. They won't get it right. They never have. Get the real facts on podcasts like this and other things, and take a look at that first whistleblower report that has been made public by the Board of Supervisors. Take a look at that. We have some credible. The whistleblower was very credible and very detailed, and that'll give you a sense of what was happening. And then as we go forward, you're going to start seeing a lot of other people come forward and saying, yeah, we saw that. We saw it. We saw every day they were commenting every day, not getting their work done, more interested in Stephanie keeping her job. Because right now I could tell you that she didn't win that election. That should have been Eric Jensen. But that's not what history will record.
Yeah, and that's a tough position to be in, where your boss is saying, hey, go do this. I mean, whether it's right or wrong, that's a tough position to be in, because if you just say no, where that goes, you're not going to move up. You could possibly end up getting let go or laid off, or there could be some ramifications to that. So
absolutely, and really, it could be also considered election fraud, because you're using taxpayers' money to run your campaign. You could alter the outcome of what should happen, and so it's very close, if not election tampering, as well. And we'll see if that ever comes up in court or not.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to come forward, is there a place for people to go? That's a whistleblower that wants, is there a place yet? I know this thing is just starting out, but
right.
Where do people go if they want to come forward?
So as this thing moves forward, there'll be a time when we start asking for people to come forward with what they've seen, and my attorney will start taking all that in, and subpoenas and all those things. And so absolutely, there'll be time for that. And that, again, let's see how this proceeds and how it moves forward. And then people can start coming forward and letting us see their side for what they were seeing. And I know of a dozen people already that were battling with different people in that office during business hours. And I was simply walking on West Street, and a gal came out. We know who she is. She took a picture of me. Then she posted it on Facebook and had a derogatory comment about Eric Jensen based off of that picture that she took of me. And that was 10:30 in the morning. She was clearly working. It was business hours. And so I saw it firsthand, but we saw it many other times too. We saw it at all the debates. We saw all her staff at board meetings to kind of support her during the boardroom. And they, many times. It even came up in one of the recorded debates. Eric Jensen even asked how many people were in this room from the DA's office, and I think he got F-bombed for that. And there was some ruckus going on during that time. And it was clear and it was obvious. I guess these people just think they're smarter than everybody else. I think that they can do whatever that they want to do and commit fraud and not be held accountable. We'll see.
Well, I think there's a lot of intimidation goes where, people are not wanting to go after the people that could come after them. And then also just the idea of, I call it Scarface-itis. I don't know if you've ever seen Scarface, but he gets a little bit drunk on power or whatever you want to call it, and you just kind of think you're untouchable. And the reality is that people get away with stuff a lot because people don't pay attention, or it's really hard to get justice. And where do you go for justice?
And what I found is that, when Dave Rickert caught me in the hall and said, hey, this investigation on the DA is wrapping up. Now, he was brand new. He'd been only on the job for a couple weeks. And so he just thought that everybody was informed on it as this thing was wrapping up and everybody knew about it. He didn't know that these things were kept secret from the board. So how many other investigations that were in the past that were done that were kept secret and downplayed? Because what the county was doing and still doing, to the best of my knowledge, is they're hiring these investigators not to have a thorough, impartial, and complete investigation, but just the opposite. I think we can show a pattern where they're hiring certain people to downplay the chain of events and the actions that occurred to minimize liability to the county.
So how does that investigator hiring, or I don't know if you call it hiring, but the selection process of the investigators, who's in charge of that? And
Well,
how,
ultimately, it's the Board of Supervisors. In fact,
Okay.
I called up Chair Cry. There was
are they most likely taking direction from staff?
They are. So it was on a consent. One was recently hired just a month ago out of the Bay Area. I looked the firm up. Of course, any investigating firm that's hired, on a multi-year cycle, I'm curious about that as to who that investigator is and what are their credentials. So this one particular company was on a consent item of maybe a month and a half ago. Looked at their website. Clearly, this is not the kind of investigator that I would want. So I talked to the chair of the board and said, have you looked at these people? He didn't know them. It was just on a consent, and the board unfortunately tends to rubber stamp consent items. And I said, you need to look at these guys. I don't think these are the kind of the investigators that you're going to want. And his response was, County Counsel Larmer said he's familiar with them and they always have a cheap price. Well, that's not how I would hire an investigator based on a cheap price. I would want one that is thorough and timely and competent. And so we're still not hiring investigators that they're hiring them to get to the objective at the end, that here's where we're at, here's the complaint that was made, and here's where we want to be at the end of the day, and fill in the gaps. And, with this investigation and this half-hearted investigation with Stephanie Bridgett and the first whistleblower, they still couldn't deny sustained allegations of fraud. And Stephanie Bridgett was smart enough to know not to lie in the investigation. She was under an oath that she did, in fact, commit the fraud, and she admitted so. And the investigators looking at 29 emails that came out of her computer during business hours. So he can see she's working on county time. And when asked, did you email out of your office at all? Oh, and she said, yeah, maybe once or twice, but he's looking at 29. And he didn't question her, saying, once or twice, I'm looking at 29, and there's probably a lot more. He didn't say any of that. He just downplayed it and said, this is minimal. This is minimal, And so minimal fraud, I guess, is okay, but it wasn't minimal fraud. They downplayed that, and the whistleblower that came forward was obviously credible, and they had to admit that. And keep in mind, these investigators, they make no legal conclusions. They're not hired to do that. They make no legal conclusions. Shasta County Superior Court and a jury of 12 people will be doing that.
So they just make recommendations.
Correct, and findings.
And findings,
And here, there was sustained findings. She campaigned on county time, and she admitted to it. That's a fact. And she's going on the radio right now saying, oh, that investigation, showed no wrongdoing. That is inaccurate and not accurate. And in fact, it is a lie. But there's a lot of lies that come from that department for what they did in 2022. And my thinking too also, and again, in the court, we're not going to go there, but if you're willing to do that in 2022 on that primary election, what else are you doing? And ask the legal community downtown Reading that deal with the district attorney on a regular basis and take a look at all the issues. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable, all the things that they've been doing, the Brady violations, withholding evidence, so much stuff. And my goal here is to just simply hold her accountable for the fraud she committed, the theft of money from the taxpayers. It's not just from my past District 4, but it's for all the taxpayers and all the people that were harmed by their cases not moving forward in a timely manner because she's campaigning. She didn't care about all those people. She campaigned, she was caring about her job. That's what she did. And she put all her people in serious jeopardy for campaigning on county time. That's illegal. And she didn't tell them no. She didn't stop them. She tries to say, oh, I don't tell them to do any of those things. It's happening right in your office. You would know what's happening, especially when you have somebody coming forward saying 80, 90% of her time is campaigning. She is, in fact, that person was her campaign manager right out of the office. And they just thought that they could get away with it. And they almost did, but not quite.
Well, you got to figure if somebody gets caught doing something, it's not the first time. I figure it's maybe 1 out of 10 best. You catch someone stealing a car, the chances are they've stole cars before.
Well, keep in mind in 2022, with what we had in staff at the county, they'd allow her to do anything that she wanted. They wouldn't have cared. When you got guys like Matt Pontus, you have people there like Leonard Modi, Ruben Cruz, Eric McGreeny. You got all these bad actors. They would let her do anything she wanted. Well, they're all gone, and you got a new team in now, and you got me to deal with. And while I may not be in office, it's irrelevant. The facts are clear. They're the same. Whether I would be in office or not, it doesn't matter. She committed fraud, and now there's a court case, and we're going to hold her accountable. And it's going to be interesting to see all the thousands of emails. And there's going to be a lot of back and forth, not a little. You'll see the extent of how much campaigning was going out of there. It might even be more than we know. But we know there was a lot.
So you remember when the FBI came for Hillary Clinton and she had her guy smash all the hard drives and iPads and computers and stuff like that? I'm just curious. Is there a way, are they erasing emails right now? And, or is, how does all that work? Out of curiosity.
I would not be surprised. I do not know what they have done or haven't done. But I'm sure the hard drives are intact, and we have enough snapshots from all the other people that were watching the campaigning going out online. We have a lot of information now, and there'll be more coming. So, hopefully they're smart enough not to destroy evidence. That would be another serious crime. Hopefully that they are forthcoming and turn over everything that they are required to do by law. So we'll see. And, time will tell.
Okay, great. Anything else you want to go over?
Well, I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we've had a really good year. We're going to have a great year next year, and lots of things going on. And appreciate all the support from everybody, from all the different projects and things that I've worked on. And looking forward to another really good year. I think we'll have a good year.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, and thanks for all that you do, Patrick. And I know that you've got a lot of better stuff to do than go to court, because it's not a lot of fun for me anyways. I've been in court, not for myself, but I've gone and just watched the process. I've seen you in court, and have you passed the bar exam yet? Because
I've almost considered that, and I hate attorneys, right? In fact, there was an attorney once I thought I liked, but I was wrong. But I've almost considered going to law school, just because of things that I've seen and bad performances from attorneys. And I guess that's how attorneys sometimes get started, is that they don't like what they see. And that's kind of what started me going to city council meetings and ultimately becoming the mayor of City Redding, and ultimately going to the board and making those changes, because I didn't like what I saw. My attorney that I have believes in justice, and he's sticking his neck out. He could lose job opportunities and all these things, but he's doing what's right. That's the kind of attorneys that we need out there. That's the kind of district attorney that we need to do what's right for the people of Shasta County. And so there are some good attorneys out there. I've seen plenty of bad ones, and I hate to go to court because of things that I see that are injustice, not following the law. I've seen judges not follow the law, and that's upsetting. We don't always agree, we don't always like the laws, but you have to follow them. And, I've done a pretty good job of that in my life, following the laws, even though I don't like all the laws. We are in a state that has a tremendous number of laws, and we have to follow them. Even though I do not like them, I follow them. And I expect everybody to do that, and I really expect our DA to do that. And I expect it from everybody, even when the public is not watching. And that's not the case here. We were watching, and we're going to catch her. Stephanie Bridgett, I'm coming.